Dallas County Courthouse was its usual bustling scene when Officer Karen Mitchell stormed into courtroom 4B, her boots striking the marble floor with practiced authority. She shoved the handcuffed man forward. "Your Honor," she announced, resisting arrest and suspicious behavior. The man, dressed in worn jeans and a dusty cowboy hat, stood quietly. Karen had seen his type before, troublemakers who thought they were above the law. Then, a wave of murmurs spread through the courtroom. Judge Martinez's hand froze midair. A clerk dropped his pen. Karen frowned. The prisoner slowly raised his head, tilting his hat back. Behind the beard and weathered face, she saw the unmistakable eyes of Chuck Norris. Karen's stomach dropped. The martial arts legend. The Texas icon. The man who had trained thousands of law enforcement officers, including many in that very courthouse. Phones emerged, recording the moment that would end her career. "Officer Mitchell," Judge Martinez said, voice tight. "Would you please read the defendant's name?" Karen glanced at the license she had barely skimmed earlier. Carlos Ray Chuck Norris. Her breath caught. She had arrested Chuck Norris for looking suspicious. Martinez exhaled. "Mr. Norris, do you wish to press charges?" Chuck shook his head. "No, Your Honor. But I would like to say something." The courtroom fell silent. His voice carried the weight of decades of wisdom. "True strength isn't about domination," he said, eyes locking onto Karen. "It's about protection. Authority comes from wisdom, not force." Karen felt the words land like blows. She had been so focused on asserting control, she had ignored every lesson she once admired. Judge Martinez turned to her. "Officer Mitchell, I suggest you listen to what Mr. Norris has to teach." Chuck met her gaze. "Spend a week at my ranch. Train with me. Learn what real strength looks like." Karen swallowed her pride. "Yes, sir." At Lone Wolf Ranch, Karen expected combat drills, but Chuck's first lesson was simple. "Take off your badge. Here, you're just Karen. A student like everyone else." She trained alongside kids she once arrested. They moved with discipline and grace, a stark contrast to her rigid, forceful approach. Chuck demonstrated a takedown, not to overpower, but to guide energy. Karen hit the mat, stunned. "That didn't hurt." "It's not about hurting," Chuck said. "It's about control. Now try again." Karen's toughest lesson came from Marcus, a teen she had once arrested for loitering. Chuck had him demonstrate a redirection technique. Karen threw a punch. Marcus didn't block. He simply redirected her energy, leaving her off balance. Chuck nodded. "What did you do?" Karen sighed. "He didn't fight force with force." Marcus smirked. "Exactly. For years, she had treated suspects like threats to be subdued. Now, a teenager was teaching her the opposite. Then came the fear exercise. Karen was paired with Sarah, a 16-year-old whose father she had arrested in a violent confrontation. Sarah's job? To throw punches that stopped inches from Karen's face. Karen's job? To stand still. She flinched every time. Her instincts screamed to fight back. Then Chuck's voice cut through. "Why are you reacting?" Karen whispered, fear. Sarah lowered her fists, her voice trembling. "Just like my dad did." Karen's breath hitched. She had spent years escalating situations instead of de-escalating them. How many people had she fought out of fear? Sarah stepped back. "Want to try again?" Karen nodded. This time, she stayed still. Back on patrol, Karen was called to a high school fight. A year ago, she would have stormed in with sirens blaring. Instead, she walked up calmly. One of the teens, Kevin, had trained at Chuck's ranch. "Kevin," she said, "show me what you learned." His fists lowered. The other teen, confused, stepped back. "Sometimes the strongest move is stepping away," Karen said. The fight ended, without threats, without arrests. Months later, Karen brought a 16-year-old car thief to Chuck's ranch. "Instead of a jail cell, let's try something different." Chuck met her eyes. "You sure about this?" Karen nodded. "As sure as you were about me." The mistake that could have ended her career instead transformed it. She was no longer just an officer. She was a protector. The war was over, and she had won.